Hello there, Josh here, coming to you from Horse Race Base, which hopefully you can see in front of you. Colin has asked me to have a quick look at Charlie Hils, and specifically his record with a few jockeys, and one of the sheikhs, one of his main owners, and a certain look on race quality, etc. And I never mind having a quick dive in, but I thought it would be quicker for me to actually just record a video of me taking a look, rather than me looking, then writing it up or writing notes and then typing them into the comments. So for anyone else interested, you can watch this, pause the video now if you want, and make yourself a cup of tea, get yourself a notepad and jot down anything that you may find of interest that may help you on the flat in the few weeks and months ahead. I haven't looked at all at Charlie Hils, and normally before I would record one of these videos, I would sometimes have a quick flick through and get my research brain in order, but to save time, I'm just going to dive straight in, and hopefully we will find something of use and something of value. So I'm looking at Charlie Hils. The first thing I'm going to do is type in Hils in the top right hand corner, which will bring up a load of horses and trainers here. So we want Charles Hils, obviously, and going through this approach might convince you, Colin, to try Horse Race Base, which, if you like digging into systems and research and everything else, is quite a good use of £10 a month. And I don't have an affiliate link for Horse Race Base, so there is no ulterior motive for me selling this piece of kit. In all seriousness, what am I looking at? Right, yes, I've got Charles Hils, so I can see various different things in front of you here. I want the V4 query tool, which is kind of a system building tool where I can dig and probe and look down. You can see his overall records there, and that is since the start of 2011. This particular one goes back to. I suppose actually that's when he officially took over the license from his dad, isn't it? So hence why there's no stats for before that. As always with these things, working out what kind of time frame to look at is a tricky thing. With trainers track, you're kind of looking at 3 or 5 years, really. I often think with trainer stats, because so many different things can change. Obviously, they can move premises, but ideally they're getting better as trainers. But of course, they can have a change in ownerships within the yard. They can start buying better quality horses, or of course can have the adverse effect go the other way, or they can get different relationships with jockeys, different stable jockeys, etc. And all of that can impact on results. So I never think it's worth going too far back. For the purpose of this, I think I will go back to the start of 2016. So by that point, he'd been kind of had the license fully for a few years. And we've kind of got 3 full years of data. You can see there he's been fairly consistent, actually, with the number of runners he's had every year. So if I go back to the start of 2016, I can kind of dig by year here. This video probably won't be shorter than 20 minutes, but we will see. But that's the nature of the beast. So yes, 2019, 18, 17, 16, so I can tick all those boxes, and it will bring up the data overall. So you can see that all of his runners, all of his place stats, all of his runners perform 13% below market expectation. One being is kind of what's expected, in line with their starting price, or their Betfair starting price. So yes, we've got Charles Hils. Now we can just break down by, well, I'm going to start with owner actually. So that takes all of these stats and breaks down by the ownership. Now they don't have all owners, but Horse Race Base has the stats of quite a few of the big owners across flat and jumps, and we should see Sheikh. Yes, Hamdan Al Maktoum, which is one of his main ownerships, obviously. You can see various other different ones there. He hasn't had many for Godolphin or others. But yes, if I focus on the main Sheikh, the kind of blue with the white lapels, actually as a kind of basis, as a starting set of stats, that's not too bad really. 308. So that the strike rate's fairly consistent, and we hopefully might not have to do too much digging in order to find a profitable angle. You can see there it's actually profitable at Betfair starting price, and it performs 1% above market expectations, which isn't great for long term, but it is a fairly decent starting set of data. So from here, let's dig down to jockeys. Obviously, Jim Crowley is his number one, the owner's number one, so you would expect, or I would expect him to have most of these. And if I sort by wins high to low, so you can sort this table that follows, this comes up in alphabetical order, but you can sort it in any way you want with all these different things here. So yes, wins high to low, and you can see there, Dane O'Neill, 25% win strike rate. He actually does better than Jim Crowley, which is interesting enough, given you'd have thought he has first choice on quite a few. So you can obviously pause this video now if you want and note down those different results there. You can see various different other jockeys that haven't had many goes at all, but certainly you wouldn't be put off by this various list down here. If they're on. I mean, there's not many others that have had a try as you'd expect. Let's just dig into Dane for a moment while we're here, because he's top of the list. And like I said, I can keep flicking back to these stats and looking at how well they've done. I mean, from here, obviously, you're getting into small amounts of data now, so you can dig in various different ways. If we look at odds there, every winner's been 14 to 1 or shorter at the moment. Well, we've got 10, 0 from 11, 3 places sent off bigger. The place stats suggest he might have some sort of bigger price one going at some point, maybe. But there you can see 29% strike rate with those sent off 14 to 1 or short, when Dane O'Neill is riding for Charlie Hils in the Hamdan Al Maktoum colours, and Dane O'Neill is the second jockey for Hamdan Al Maktoum, and is arguably underrated and underused. And the AE is fairly decent, so not necessarily a good systematic way in, but a good starting point. And sometimes you'd actually think if Dane O'Neill's been booked on something, that means Jim Crowley has refused or think he has better rides elsewhere. These stats would suggest that is not the correct way to think about that jockey booking scenario. So certainly as a way in or further consideration, decent enough there. Of course, we could dig down further by various other different things. You can, well, actually, let's look at class first of all. I mean, the Sheikh doesn't have too many or any class 5, class 6 handicappers, I think, if they're at that ability, or even class 4, I don't think, but we'll see what the stats say. They probably have shifted out pretty quick. Having said that, no, ignore that, because the stats on class 5 are fairly decent. Of course, I'm not looking at handicaps and non-handicaps here, and I imagine quite a few of those are in maidens or novice races. But again, you can see the stats there, 50% win strike rate. And actually, Dane O'Neill, that's interesting. So class 1, that might be when Hils has a few on the card, and Crowley, you would think, definitely wants to ride the class 1 horses in with a chance given the prize money. But on the odd occasion, he's either been booked elsewhere, probably on another runner of his retained owner. Dane O'Neill has stepped up to the plate rather well. These stats in this middle part here may suggest that Crowley's getting the decisions right on class 2, 3, 4 level, but possibly not. And the class 5, so Dane O'Neill, Charles Hils, Hamdan Al Maktoum, class 5, 12 from 24, 15 places, plus 33 SP. That's with no odds cap. So that's decent enough. 3 from 3 in 2019. So there's a very micro angle for those of you who like such things and may want to jot down. What else do I want to look at? Oh yes, we can look at race type. That might help. So this will break down all of those results by the various different race types as categorized in horse race base. And you can see there kind of non-handicaps, maidens, novice races might be the place to focus. You can see the stats there for handicappers. So if we focus on those, you can see there 30% strike rate in non-handicaps, which will cover some group and class 1 races as well. I can dig back down again by class, and again you can see there kind of class 1 and class 5 in which makes logical sense there given the race types actually. in maiden novices and kind of, well, there'll be class 1 non-handicaps, 14 from 30, 17 places. And again, if I dig down, where he's ticking down to 10 minutes, haven't gone to Jim Crowley yet. Yeah, again, all those winners have been 14 to 1 or shorter. So as a kind of very micro, but it's certainly not wanting to take on these runners necessarily. You can see the stats there. So Dana Neal's pretty decent. Of course, then you're starting to dig in very, very micro, but hopefully even that little look has been interesting enough. I suppose we could just look at distance quickly. Again, looking at the start of the set, most of these higher class jockeys are decent over a lot of distances, and it probably depends more so on the horse. But again, you can see the distance breakdown there, and you're free to pause this video at any point you want and note down whatever you want from what you can see in front of you. If we go on age, I assume quite a few of these might be 2 or not. Maybe the Shape likes his horses, and Charlie Hils likes to bring his horses along a bit slower. Simply Dane O'Neill on all of Hamdan Al Maktoum's 3-year-olds is another decent little angle there. You can see race class. I can keep digging again. You can see how you can just keep going and going. Again, class 1 for the higher class races, and class 5, which will be the maidens and the novices. Seems to be the place to focus with Dana Neal, so that will be him. If I get rid of that, and we'll kind of fly through Jim Crowley and kind of do the same thing. Of course, you could break down all of those things in various different other ways, but when you're looking at kind of 40 and 50% strike rates, you don't need to get digging too much, I don't think. And there's quite a bit of logic behind some of those little angles there. If we have a look at what am I doing? Jim Crowley. As I fly through to 12 minutes, you can have so much fun in horse race base. I hope you're having as good a time as I am. Where are we? Jim Crowley, Charles Hils, Hamdan Al Maktoum. Start of 2016, you can see there is actually performing 9% below market expectations, despite the fact it's profitable to SP and Betfair SP. That might suggest in the longer term, over a bigger sample, that profit pile would get whittled away. You can see there 2019 doing rather well. I mean, odds is always one way to narrow things occasionally, but you can see there he's had a winner at 20 to 1. He's not had many sent off bigger than 12, so there's probably not much there. What else shall we look at? Yeah, so race class, we can see here. Again, class 1 does all right. Class 2, decent enough. Class 3, you can see there, it has a decent record. Class 4, class 5, not so much. I suppose if they're possibly maiden races and novice races as well, and they, I could dig into it. They might not be they might be lightly raced horses, might have not hit the racetrack yet or race once. If they're a longer term prospect or project even, Crowley won't be beating them up too much in maiden novice races, and it would make sense that actually he gets on the ones they really like. So the logic there of him getting on the horse they really like, but not absolutely beating them up and giving them a bad racecourse experience on their first 1 or 2 starts would actually make sense. Maybe Dane O'Neill's getting on the ones with a bit more experience, or the more precocious ones. Who knows? But it's always good to try and think of the logic or the reasons for why something may be happening as it does, especially when we're talking about trainer and jockey and owner behaviour. Right, I know what else did Colin. Well, I'll dig into another bit. Race quality was one of them, and there should be, if I can find it, I'm going to look at the amount of money's worth. I'm going to pause this while I look, because you don't want to hear me kind of trying to find the right box to tick. So hold on a second. Back I am. It was right in front of me. Prize money. So yes, I can break down by prize money with Jim Crowley's. Obviously, that's linked to class as well. But Colin's thoughts of the kind of very valuable races being a place to focus and maybe have more confidence on would prove correct there. So those races worth above 100,000. So Jim Crowley riding for his retained owner for Charlie Hils. We can see there those stats, and we can look at the qualifiers, and we can look at the wins, and actually well, we had Kadim at Goodwood in the week, but Tash is responsible for 3 of those. Obviously, 2 of those are quite inhibitive odds. A Fark there, that was in one of the big handicaps, and they're becoming worth a hell of a lot of money. Was at the Hunt Cup or something at Royal Ascot. So yeah, you can see those there. So you can look at the winners and you can break down and do things in that respect. That's always useful. Just to see if there's one particular horse swaying the stats, etc. But clearly, in these kind of races worth plenty of money, the trainer knows what horses to target, and Jim Crowley can clearly handle the pressure, hence why he's probably got this job. What else can we look at? I mean, you can look at prize money and obviously then class separate. And you can see the various different breaks down there. Actually, Crowley does pretty well at the lesser end if you're looking in races that are worth just over £4,001 to 8,000. If I break down by class, this might be a certain band. Oh no, yeah, class 3, 4, and 5 actually there, as you can see. So that might be another way in. 23% strike rate. 2019 not great. You can break down by race type. So again, you can have a look here. Actually, in handicappers, that isn't the place to focus. So if you ignored the handicappers and you're looking at, well, you can just look. You can break down by handicap or non-handicap as well. So yeah, I mean, the 50% play strike rate suggests that those stats might end up in a more positive light in time. But I suspect plenty of them are very well backed. But kind of non-handicaps, £4,001 to 8,000. Again, as I flick through class, like I said, I'm doing this live and the brain's whirring away. But you could actually, well, yes, you can see the stats there. But I mean, there's many different ways you can dig down. See, class 3 and class 4. Class 3, class 4 kind of non-handicaps. With Jim Crowley riding for his retained owner and obviously Charlie Hils. Yeah, I mean, you can see the stats there. That's without the prize money element, kind of class 2, 3, and 4 in non-handicaps. Jim Crowley for those conditions, as you can see there, 8 from 24, 14 places, which might be interesting enough. Again, it looks like he probably had a bigger price one, which has helped those stats, and in recent times quite a few shorties. But if that's useful, whether or not you might like backing short the prices, but at least it is useful to know whether or not to be so confident taking them on, or certainly taking them on each way, say, as an example. So there's many different ways you can use such stats. Let me pause this a second again while I just rack my brains about other things I can dig into. Right, sorry, I'm back. I just paused there for a couple of minutes so I had to ponder. So yeah, we've got the starting set of data here. I will just click on all race class just so you can see actually his record. Well, you can see it all there really. I suppose you could highlight his record in class 2, all class 2s. That would be handicaps, non-handicaps. Charlie Hils and the Sheikh, 5 from 18, 7 places, plus 29 at Betfair starting price. What else do I want to look at? I mean, you can break down and look at kind of track. I mean, we're generally talking small numbers here. And, I wouldn't say he has a terrible record at any particular track. As you can see from the stats, and the place stats are decent for most of them. You can look at, let's have a look. Well, there was horse age. I forget what we flipped through. I mean, this is with the starting set of data again, and probably requires some digging. You can see his record there on 2-year-olds is decent enough, although you're not going to get very rich backing them, and they actually underperform so far to market expectations, although that's a small sample. You can look at how many runs the horse has had in its career. So you can look at those for Crowley making race debuts, only 1 from 14 since the start of 2016 for the Hils runners. Those that have had 1 career start already, 5 from 14, 9 places, that would indicate they learned plenty on their first start, and Crowley gets a tune out of them on their second. And you can see various different things there. I mean, you can then start looking at he does quite well with those who've had quite a few career runs. You could look at those that have had 5 or more, for example, and you're getting those stats there, as you can see, 11 from 38 for those that have had 5 or more career runs, which is decent enough, and again would be a credit to Charlie Hils and possibly bringing quite a few horses along slowly. Again, you can see the qualifiers down here, you can see which horses they are, etc., and the prices they were sent off at. And again, you can kind of maybe break that down by class, although you're getting very micro now, as you can see. But again, class 1 and class 2, decent win strike rates for those particular horses. So yes, that kind of gives a rough indication of Jim Crowley and Charles Hils. There's probably many things that I could dig into and have a look. There was some revealing stuff for Dane O'Neill there. I mean, you can keep digging and digging and digging, and I've only spent 20 minutes there. I mean, you can keep going. I mean, obviously, you can stop watching this video whenever you please. But you've got Charles Hils there. If I just look, I'll kind of speed this up. If I just look at Class 1 and Class 2 races, you know, you can break down by jockey. Well, actually, let me firstly just see if what odds he has at various different. If he has, well, yeah, you can see the odds here. So I mean, this helps kind of narrow things down. Those sent off 20 to 1 or bigger. Well, I suppose 21 to 25 to 1 is 2 from 55. So this is just all Class 1 and Class 2 runners since the start of 2016. So those winners are pretty hard to find. And then you saw there with the what else do we have? Well, yeah, if you went from 20 to 1 all the way up, he's had nothing 28 to 1 or bigger. So far, 0 from 64, 3 places when they're sent off 28 to 1 or bigger. So, you know, that's some indication that they're, you know, well, they are very hard to find because he hasn't had any yet since the start of 2016 in that price range. What else? Well, yes, so you can then kind of get rid of a lot of the deadwood then when kind of looking at stats. I suppose you're looking at horses that are 13 to 2 or shorter. So that's Charlie Hils fancied runners, really, all Class 1 and Class 2, sent off 13 to 1 or shorter. You can see the stats there, which are solid enough. I mean, you can break down by jockey again, and you know, you can just keep going and going with these kind of trainer profiles. If we have a look here, you can see there Jim Crowley's been 9 and 20 of them. Frankie Dettori, Dane O'Neill, you know, these are Class 1 and 2 races with fancied horses. It's probably no surprise that the big boys and the very top jockeys have been booked. William Buick, Jamie Spencer, the Double A, Harry Bentley, Doyle's had rides. Oisin Murphy's only had 3, but one of them's placed. Ryan Moore's had 5, 1 place. So again, you can see there the records of the different jockeys there. I imagine all of Jim's are for the owner retained, but not necessarily. You can see the stats there. So fancied runners in Class 1 or 2 for Charles Hils, that might be useful. And then you can kind of look at the odds. You know, he has winners, what was I going to do, maybe 18 to 1 and shorter. Although they're obviously hard to find, and you can't back all of these Class 2, 1 and 2 horses at 18 to 1 or shorter there, as you can see. But I mean, again, you can break down by owner. You can see there the main shake, Miss Victory Hay. I forget what those colours look like, actually. They're the kind of pink-ish ones, aren't they? In any case, you can see those stats there. I mean, we can break down by race type again as I tick round to 24 minutes. And you can see overall, actually, there's not too much difference in non-handicaps, handicaps. In terms of strike rate, you've got age again. Let's have a look. You know, you can see the stats there. I mean, you could keep digging and digging. I suppose I could dig, and you're looking at Class 1 and 2 that are 18 to 1 or shorter, and I can use this dig function to compare kind of 2 categories or more. So I could look at track and I could look at distance. So you're looking at course and distance just to see if there's anything since the start of 2016 which jumps out. Goodwood, 7 to 7.5 furlongs, Class 1 and 2, 18 to 1 off short, the Charlie Hils. Good one again, Sandown. I mean, you're not talking massive stats here, but again, you can pause the video and note down anything you wanted, I suppose. And then you've got some zero stats, but again, small numbers. York, not so good, but yeah, you are talking very small numbers here in which to make punting decisions, certainly whether not to back something. What else? So yeah, that's Class 1 and 2. We've had a look at jockeys, haven't we? I suppose we can look at distance. Again, 5 furlongs, decent enough. He's pretty good with his sprinters, and actually probably best with his sprinters. If you're looking at Class 1 and 2, 18 to 1 or short, they're over a mile and further. Only a 9% win strike rate. That might be of some interest, maybe, or maybe not. But of course, he has winners. So it's just a question of trying to find which ones are which and which ones to go for. But you can see those stats there. I mean, you can look at all kinds of things. You can look at horse runs in the last 90 days just to see if they're fit. So those that have had one run in the last kind of 3 months or so, you can look at horse runs per season. To see if he, uses a few runs to get horses fit or whatever. And it looks like, well, there's not overly much difference between quite a few of those different categories there. Like I said, the split between handicap and handicap was pretty similar in terms of win strike rate. But again, you could then dig into handicaps and everything else, but that's 26 minutes and probably long enough. Hopefully there's a couple of interesting points there. Like I said, you can just keep digging and digging as I think of other things. You can look at class move. Is he any good when he's moving horses in different classes? So you can see there when he drops a horse one class from its last run, 8 from 30, 13 places. That looks quite a shrewd kind of angle and something he likes to pull off with effect. You can look at distance move, if he's moved the horse in distance obviously since his last run, and again there actually moving horses up 1 furlong, questionable. Anyway, you can see the stats in front of you there. You could look at the kind of profile of horse and how many wins they've had. So you can look at how many wins they've had in their career. So do we want the kind of young, unexposed ones or the kind of older, more heavily raced? You can see kind of where the profit is there as such, and various things might need some more digging. But yes, those that have 1 or 2 career wins might be worth some kind of closer scrutiny. And you can see there 15% strike rate. So that's the kind of thing that could be you could dig into down a bit more. And we're looking at race type again. Obviously, I could just keep going and going here. But yes, so handicaps, there we go. So if you look at Charlie Hils handicappers in class 1 and 2 races, which were sent off 18 to 1 or short to SP, had 1 to 2 career wins. So you'd like to think they're still open to improvement. You can see the overall stats there. I can get rid of the odds because it could be, I looked at that under kind of slightly different set of criteria, and it could be the bigger ones. No, you can see there, that's the kind of correct odds roughly, is 0 from 16, 0 from 25, 3 places, 20 to 1 and bigger SP. So, you can do different things with those. If I look at prize money within class 1 and 2, again you can see the breakdown. Actually, there's no reason to kind of dig further there. Like I said, you're looking at very micro stats here in terms of distances, etc. I suppose we can go back to owner to what we were looking at before. Actually, no, it's actually most of the profit comes from those not trained by the Sheikh, but that's decent enough. And of course, we can look at jockey again to get a feel for these unexposed handicappers. Jim Crowley, Atzini, William Cox, he'd have been claiming. It would appear jockey booking actually isn't too significant necessarily, although SDS hasn't had the best of records, but he's used quite a few jockeys. That might be because, well, yeah, who knows? There could be various reasons for that, linked to the owners, etc. You can see the record there of those jockeys within this criteria. So that's another kind of micro angle that might be of some interest possibly certainly as a way in for these top level races, class 1 and 2 handicaps, standard handicaps, not nursery, since the start of 2016, 18 to 1 or shorter SP. Horse wins into career 1 to 2, indicating they're unexposed. Of course, you can then look at the runs they've had. Wherever the criteria is, horse runs in career, so we know they've got 1 to 2 wins. You can then look at the runs they've had, and actually kind of 4 or more. I mean, you're not talking much here that have had 2 or 3 runs. That would indicate they've obviously won pretty quickly in their career already. But I mean, you can apply not rules. You could ignore those. I mean, they're only 0 from 10, 2 places. But of course, that makes the stats look a little bit better. So there you go. There's a kind of off-the-shelf research micro for those who may want to note that down, and pretty easy to find, I suppose, given we're talking class 1 and 2 handicaps. There's not many of those each week, mainly on Saturdays and the big festivals, but you can see the stats there for that little Charlie Hils micro angle. And I'm going to stop there because I probably could go on for an hour just looking into Charlie Hils. I haven't even touched on Ed Walker, but that's the kind of thing you can do. If you like doing such things, it's horse race based. I'm not sure if they're taking new members. It's only £10 a month if you like digging into such things, and you can save all these systems, and then the qualifiers will be found automatically for you the afternoon before the next day's racing, etc. So with that said, I was kind of aiming for 20 minutes. We've gone to 31, but I hope you found that useful. And this is Josh saying bye for now.